Hi, Steve Adubato in the Senate chamber and the Statehouse, and we are pleased to be joined by the Speaker of the Assembly, Vincent Prieto. Good to see you, Mr. Speaker.
It's great to be here, Steve.
I asked you this last time we were here. You like this chamber, this Senate chamber?
It's a nice chamber, but I think mine's actually a little bit prettier, and I feel at home over there.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Tom Kaine said that he thought, Tom Kaine Jr. said thought this was very special.
Well, I guess they call it the House of Lords, but I'm the leader of the People's House, and
Well,
I enjoy that tremendously.
I love it. Well, no matter what house you're involved in, or which house, you've got to deal with the fact that it's the 24th of February we're taping, and on the 23rd, the governor's budget address is actually about 2 hours away. Mm-hmm. And that budget address, what do you think? You think there'll be some reference to the court decision that was made yesterday by Judge Mary Jacobson that said, hey, the state has to put in $1.56 billion into the pension fund?
Yeah, potentially we'll hear about it. And listen, it is something that we know was out there, and it's an obligation.
You're not surprised?
I'm really not surprised, to be honest with you. I've always thought that there was an obligation. Once we passed legislation that we made sort of a commitment of paying 1/7 into it over a 7-year period to get to fully funding, that was something we should have done. We sent a budget last year that included for it. Obviously, it did not make it. We had included their funding for it.
To be clear, so folks can follow this. Mm-hmm. This is for the Public Employees Pension Fund, which is right now in the hole for, is it $60 billion?
It's actually $37 billion, the unfunded liability for the pension portion.
$37 billion?
$37 billion, that's the number.
But looking beyond that, the number gets bigger.
Yeah, what it is, if you were today to be able to fully fund it, you would need $37 billion, and that's the number. You may hear different numbers. It depends what
different numbers.
What the math that you use, but the number that is actually from the committee that the governor had put together, their number is $37 billion.
Okay, so it has been argued, and the governor says this, and John Bramnick, the Republican leader, says it, that the Democrats put a budget together to fund that portion of the pension payment by putting in a millionaire's tax, and they said there's no way in the world the governor would support that, or that they would support it, and that all you're doing is driving people away by supporting more taxes.
And I wouldn't correlate it that way. We had a millionaire's tax in our budget. And normally a tax like that would be for somewhat of property tax relief. That included in the whole budget, it included the pension payment that was supposed to be $2.25 billion. It included. So you can't just say that one source of revenue is what's paying that directly, but it would have kept us to our obligations. As the court now has said, you're basically responsible and need to come up with $1.6 billion.
So, Mr. Speaker, how does it happen now? I mean, given the fact that the courts have said, and obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, but likely, there'll be an appeal. Mm-hmm. The Supreme Court likely will decide this situation. Right. But money has to come from somewhere.
Absolutely.
So say the response is, okay, if there isn't going to be a millionaire's tax, because the governor told us in public television, in an interview I did with him and many others, he's not going to support a millionaire's tax. Say there has to be cuts. And say those are cuts to public employees. Say those are cuts to charity care, to urban hospitals. Right. Cuts to police and fire and...
Yeah, listen, budgeting is about priorities, so we have to figure out how we have to come up with, to live within our means. And I've said it, and I've said it on this show, and I said it, I think, a year ago, before we had problems with our budget, that my concerns was, that's why tax cuts were not the way to go, that we have a revenue problem in the state of New Jersey. We have not grown our budget, our revenues coming in as other states surrounding us. We have lagged behind them, and the expectations that have been put forward, we have not met. So we have to grow our economy, and that's how you get out of this. Growing our economy and being able to do the things and figuring out how do we get revenues. And listen, property tax relief for our residents, it needs to come from somewhere. And when we talk about that upper echelon, and we were talking people making over $1 million, that was for that amount over $1 million.
Not the first dollar, but the first dollar after $1 million.
After $1 million would have helped our budget. And now if you want to take that and correlate it to our pension, that's part of our obligations. We spend over $12 billion in education, K through 12. So these are all things that we have already in our budget. You can pick and choose and point to one revenue as that's going to be the source, but that's not fair. It's overall all of our obligations.
Mr. Speaker, can I get a quick answer to this? I know we're taping on the 24th of February, and by the time this airs, it may be solved. It may not. But when I asked the governor about this in our interview on the 22nd of December, about the Transportation Trust Fund issue, he said, we're working on it. Right. He said he was working closely with you and the Senate President. And I said, could you tell me about it? He said, no, because we don't negotiate in public.
Right.
I'm sure you saw that.
Yeah.
You don't negotiate in public either, but you have said many times you support the idea of raising the gas tax. I believe we have the second lowest gas tax levy in the nation. The governor has said he does not support a gas tax hike. So how the heck are you negotiating if he doesn't support a gas tax hike, you support a gas tax hike, and the Transportation Trust Fund, which funds the roads and bridges and mass transit, running out of money on June 30th, and you've got to get a source of funding, and that's the major source of funding. Yeah. Am I missing something?
Well, I don't know what governor you spoke to, but the one that I've been speaking to, he has said that everything's on the table.
Including a gas tax hike?
Including a gas tax. And there was other things that he was looking at potentially to get done and coupled with that. But listen, at the end of the day, again, I'll go back to, we need revenue sources. And if you getting in from the current structure, $1.2 billion, and after June 30th of this year, every penny is going to pay down debt. You have nothing.
Debt on the Transportation Trust Fund.
On the Transportation Trust Fund, and none of that money you're really going to get cleared back into the 2030s, mid-2030s, you have a problem. How do you fund our crumbling road infrastructure? You need a sustainable source of income, in the gas tax where it is, and especially where gas is today. If you take it from there, constitutionally dedicated, put it back into our roads, you have to look at it and compare apples to apples. The average driver pays in repairs to their vehicle due to roads about $600 a year. That would help that. It would help you alleviate congestion, save on gas, getting quicker, not be stalled in traffic jams. Our bridges are there's a 36% of them are either obsolete or structurally unsound that we need to take care of before we have a catastrophe. So we need to start looking at this. So I commend them for saying that everything was on the table. So
you think that includes, sorry for interrupting, you believe that includes the prospect of a gas tax hike?
Well, okay. If not, where else would we get the funding for it?
Okay, so let's try this. Another tax. The Assembly Republican leader, John Bramnick, we'll talk to on the other half of this program, is a big advocate of doing away with the estate tax. There's an estate tax and an inheritance tax. New Jersey is one of the most expensive states in the country to die in, right?
I heard that.
You heard that, but also we debated this at the Business and Industry Association forum that I moderated with you and the other legislative leaders. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you said the problem that you had with doing away with the so-called estate tax is that it brings in about how much money?
About $440 million.
And you said what? Tell me where the money comes from.
It's from.
Tell me how you're going to make up the money.
Right. So you're going to have an additional hole in your budget. So, and these are things that we can talk about. See, our estate tax is actually an unfair to a certain amount that we have a threshold of $675 million, $675,000, excuse me. But what happens is, before that, you pay none. But once you hit that threshold, you pay from $1. I think that's an inequity that we need to resolve. And we probably could work at that, and we could probably absorb how do you phase it out, and we could work on that. And I think that's something I would definitely be supportive. But it has to be coupled with other things, like taking care of our road infrastructure. So these are all things that we're looking at and exploring. Like I said, we don't negotiate in public, but I think it's having a good debate and doing the right thing for the people of the state of New Jersey. And this is not for something that it should be for this governor. If we do a plan for the Transportation Trust Fund and, and for the state, getting rid of the state tax, it needs to be something long lasting for not just one governor, for many governors, and it should be for the people of the state of New Jersey.
Can I get a quick comment on this? The Assembly passed, literally yesterday, I believe, Patrick Dagnan, the chair of the Assembly Education Committee, is talking about the fact that the park test,
Yes.
standardized park test, he argues there are lots of problems with it, and that there should be a 3-year timeout, a moratorium on it. It should not be used to measure teachers' performance. It should not be used to place students in a whole range of advanced placement situations, et cetera, et cetera. Did you vote for that?
I voted yes for that, and I think it's very important for the reason being that it's very sound a policy that you implement it first and not start using it from day one, even as a portion of assessments, because there's many barriers that you have to be. It's a totally online test. It's something new for us. So something for us to work at it and make sure that it works, that we are teaching the proper
You have
curriculum.
concerns about the test?
I do, and because I'm not too sure if with the standard curriculum that we have in the state of New Jersey, if this is compatible, and are we teaching to this? And now, if you take teachers, that some of this is going to weigh on their performance, what are they going to do? Teach to the test? And now, are children now going to be just geared to make sure they pass this test? Then the children are the ones that suffer. So a teacher should not have to be teaching how to take a test. We should be able to teach them so they learn and they can flourish and move to the second level.
30 seconds. Confident that you and the Senate President and your Republican colleagues, together with the governor, are going to take on the challenges that we have in the state with everything going on and all the negativity? Confident?
I'm confident. We have to. Listen, the people of New Jersey rely on us to make the tough decisions. That's why they have elected us. And for me, you will never get sound bites. You'll get honest answers all the time.
Every time we've had you, Mr. Speaker, that's what you've done. Thank you.
Thank you.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence, and 13 for WNET. Funding for this edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been provided by Barnabas Health, the New Jersey Education Association, New Jersey's credit unions, NJ Best, Fedway Associates, Community Education Centers, the Northeast Regional Council of Carpenters, and by these public-spirited organizations committed to informing New Jersey citizens about the important issues facing the Garden State, and by Employers Association of New Jersey.